Do like and subscribe, and I hope you like the content. Animals take on very easy because animals are highly subjected and highly submissive. And let me go a step further. As I've gotten over the years to get to know animals more and more, dogs, cats, I I seen birds too. I can't really say I've gotten to know birds, right? But animals are highly intelligent, highly see they don't they're not about any kind of ego or show and tell. They're not striving, they simply live. Jesus says that the birds are the air of the air are fed by the Father which is in heaven. And he gave the indication that human beings were worth more to God. Well, not worth more, but he sees them with a much greater care. Even though he looks after animals and he feeds them, is that he knows that animals never sinned against him the way human beings have. So therefore, they're not subjected to the fallen nature, but they are subjected to the nature of man controlling them in a fallen state. In light of that, when people do get animals, because look, you observe them well enough, they will probably immediately figure out, okay, you're the one that's going to feed me, you're the one that's going to look after me, and you're the one that's going to give me shelter, and you're the one that's going to give me love. And in return, they're not going to try to snow you with what they're giving you back. What they're giving you back is a real thing. They're going to give back to you faithfulness, love, gratitude, and it's going to be on repeat. And it's also going to be amplified consistently. That's what makes them so special. Now, the Bible says that when God made mankind, he said, go and therefore and take dominion. So he never took those rights away from the human race. That's why animals suffer. Now, God is going to hold mankind in high accountability because of their wickedness for what they've done to animals. But the people who own animals, there's two types of people. And we all have kind of seen it enough on YouTube and so many other forums that there's two types of people. There's the empath and there's the narcissist, right? An animal in the home of an empath will sooner or later reflect. Even an animal that's untrainable will in turn give over its power to the empath, so much so that an animal's behavior will change. And it's happened consistently. People who do behavioral science on animals, they have discovered that the majority of the times it's really the owner's problem. The stuff coming from the owner on that's being projected onto the animal. You put animals in the presence and the consistency of a narcissist, you're going to get that animal begin to reflect, not deflect, not divert, will begin to reflect and mimic the exact motions and the exact frequencies of that narcissist, right to the T. And when they see, because animals are much more freer than human beings because they're not subjected to the sinful nature, they know that they're experiencing something called an inner suffering because they're taking on also the suffering of the narcissist. Because animals are all about safety, it is considered an abuse when a narcissist brings an animal into their home and begins to slowly change that animal. It is abusive. And to begin, to even go a step further, the narcissists basically, in any given respect, their motto is that they have arrived, they were born to, and they're trained, and they are in training, and they are willfully about abusing you or anyone around them. They're about abuse. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They will take advantage of your time. They'll take advantage of everything they can because they only see one person, themselves, in the mirror. And that's what the word narcissist means. In love with one's own image in the reflection, right? Narcissus. It was some guy who fell in love with his image after he looked at it in the pond or wherever. I think that's where it was, in a mirror. I think it was. Anyway, you get an animal away from a narcissist, they will immediately, because it's in them, change their energy, and they will begin to behave differently. Whether they behave a certain violent way and then they realize they're in a safe environment, they will switch. But as soon as that narcissist comes around, they will switch back. And one thing I've noticed, I've watched their tails go immediately between their legs. And I've also seen them become very afraid to enter back into the house after they went for a walk by another person. It is a very sad thing, because especially when you have seen an animal, and let me step out a little bit here. People who run rescues, I can't speak for every one of them, but there are some people I've known run rescues that are absolute narcissists. And in their contribution of their who they are and what they are, like the old saying says, whatever he touches turns to gold. Well, whatever a narcissist touch turns to mold. They don't bring a very rich quality to anything that they do, really. So the rescues are also going to involve a certain amount of having that animal pass through the hands, or pass through the medium of negativity before the animal ends up in a bad home. We're good people who run good rescues, because they're more attentive, they're more professional. And that's another thing about narcissists in general, is that they are powerful amateurs. They're not professionals. They are much ado about nothing. They don't really know a heck of a lot, but they act like they do. They always have a presentation about how much they know, when they're quite stupid. Honestly, you get to know them, you realize that some of the things they'll do are so backwards. It's like you going, who thinks of this, right? In the process of all of what they do, their contribution to an animal passing through them run and rescue is that those animals will end up, I can't speak for all of them, sometimes they get blessed because someone else come in the environment that helps out, and their contribution will help that animal find its way to a better home. But a lot of times they don't put so much thought into the quality of the homes that those animals are going into. They play a major part as to what abuse is like for animals. They really do. They are the liaisons to abuse for animals. And a lot of them run rescues because it gives them a certain level of prestige in a public arena. It gives them the ability to do their posts on social media as to how wonderful they are. They will be extremely professional at getting money out of people for their rescue, when in reality that money ends up in their pockets. I've heard of even some of these women running rescues where the animals, they were actually selling the animals to people who eat dogs and cats, and they would bring the animals in just for that purpose. And when people thought they were running a rescue, no, they were running a meat show, a meat shop. These things makes you think like, wow. I didn't mean to get off topic here, but getting back to the animal and what happens to that animal. Because animals are so highly aware, they're highly trainable because of their awareness. I've seen very gentle, amazing animals end up in a narcissist's home and be extremely unhappy and have the narcissist say something to the effect, oh, they're just so laid back. They're just so, that's just the way they are. When in reality, they don't know how to look into the animal's eyes and see that the animal is unhappy to be there. It's trapped. It's survival dependency that keeps them trapped. If you were to open up the gate, the animal would run away. Because just like human beings, people know when they're in a trap. They know when they're, whether they don't have the money to do it, but they know somewhere deep down inside, I have to get out of here. People know it. Don't underestimate animals. Animals also know the same thing. The worst part about animals that when they're in the hands of narcissists is that a lot of them end up getting put down. They get blamed for what the ugliness that the narcissist has projected on them. And I'm going to leave you with this one. I've seen this one to be so true. I remember talking to a girl at this one. They sold like dog food, pet stores, right? And she was relaying about how she had, I think it was 4 or 5 dogs, and they all died of the same thing. And that's when I started to cue in. And then I met this other person down the years that also said her dog died of the same thing. All the dogs she had. Then I started to listen to her fears. I started to listen to her concerns. And I realized that she was projecting her stuff onto the dogs so it wouldn't get on her. It is a metaphysical exchange. It really does work. When dogs are actually given the pill that is meant for the human being, when the consequences meant for the human being is projected, allayed, delayed, and placed on an animal, it is one of the highest forms of abuse. It's selfish, it's despicable, and yet it happens. And when the animal ends up doing something really bad, it's only because the human being is able to hide it so well. But we don't see what goes on behind the spiritual doors in people's lives. Animals get put down. Animals get a lot of terrible things will happen to them. And sometimes human beings even will position their animal to be competitive against the neighbor's animals to show who is more powerful. It is just to really see this and to know that this is really happening. I think we live in a day and age, and there's probably enough awareness should be brought about to the fact that animals need to be really, really vetted before they end up in rescues and before they end up in the home and the harm and the hands of a despicable, demon-possessed narcissist. Because those animals don't deserve it. They don't deserve it. And it's really sad. It's a sad tale. But I believe God has a final say, because the Bible says that the soul of the animals goes to the place God has prepared for them. And it's not the end of animals. For human beings, it's a different story. If narcissists don't ever find what God would like to do in their lives, they end up in damnation. And is probably being more proven a fact. The narcissists don't change, and they're on the road to damnation. May God have mercy on the animals. Have a good day.